Hey, AugMentors. I'm Julie.
And I'm Jimmy.
And we know that great leaders have great mentors. And today we are diving deep with Robert Mundy, health policy activist, social worker, and an advisor on bringing trauma-informed healing into connected relationships.
Rob teaches us how to connect better with others through a token. Think of the book at book club. You don't actually talk about the book much. You're there for the community. You will learn how to grow to your potential via the oldest and simplest golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated, but on the reverse. So many service people and folks who identify as helpers forget that they deserve the same help that they give to other people. This entire episode is about the principle of connection. You're going to hear right away how warm and rigorous Rob is in his approach to help others. Here we go. Julie, this was a real treat for me to hear Rob fully rock out on all things that he cares about in his profession. Normally, I just see him practicing his delightfully loping lefty jumper. So to get him off the court and onto the pod was pretty powerful for me. I didn't realize some of the depths that Rob has gone to activate his power of helping others at scale. And helping others in some really challenging groups.
Well, I have to be honest with you, Jimmy. I was not sure what to expect. This was your basketball buddy, and you kept calling him Robbie Mundizzle, so I wasn't totally sure who was going to come on the pod, but I was optimistic, and I have to say this was such an incredibly enlightening conversation. Even just talking about this idea of trauma-informed mentoring or making sure you're really understanding where people are coming from, I think that was huge. I loved how he talked about masculinity and him in this sort of very female profession and being sometimes the only man that a lot of these kids are seeing and spending time with, and like what that means in the greater context of the world. And I also just loved his energy and optimism. So, I mean, and he did say you're good at basketball. So I was happy to hear that. I believed that, but I hadn't really gotten it verified by anybody.
I just pay him to say that. That's the easy part.
That worked.
But yeah, talking about making children comfortable, it's going to come into play later on, like this whole theme of being askable. I loved how Rob brought that up, that the best way to become askable with a youth is to find a way to play with them, to find a way. Play normally involves something physical, but it could be just a mental game as well. But to find this kind of token that you can both feel and touch and move around, and that unlocks this level of comfort to then make both people prepared to be vulnerable and ask, because you've already demonstrated so much connection through engaging in this form of play together. And I came up with, the metaphor of the book at book club, as my mother talks about going to book club all the time. And I ask, what do people think of the book? And she's like, oh, we never even got to that. And they just put the book on the table, the coffee and wine flows, and 2 hours later she's home and nobody knows what the protagonist said. And that was a big deal to me. And we've already started incorporating that into some of our work about how can you physically represent an unlock of comfort.
Yeah. And then it's really about creating that connection. Ultimately, because you have something to share, something to talk about. And certainly in the case with children, right, there's always something, like he said, the basketball, or something that he can bring into the scenarios. But even with adults, like having something, I was on a mentoring conversation and I realized that what was actually sitting behind me during this conversation was something that was actually also in the woman I was talking to's house as well. So even in our virtual environment where you're not necessarily sitting together, she's like, oh wait, I have the exact same thing, and went and got it and realized we had the exact same object in our house, which is sort of bizarre. But then it created that connection, right? Like we already have that place where we're connecting, and then we can have a further conversation. So yeah, I think that's a really big idea about even having just something physically as part of the mentoring conversation.
And maybe that's why Oprah, the Empress of Connection, started her book club.
Or maybe why she gives away a thing. You get her favorite things, not just her favorite ideas.
Who wants one? You get a car. You get a car. Yeah, I mean, it's true. And knowing Oprah, it was probably very purposeful and not accidental. But there's definitely something here. And Rob giving us that view into the psychology of unlocking vulnerability through this token is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we were joking before we started recording about the golden rule and how either people say it's played out or like the only rule. But the idea of flipping the golden rule around, I'm not going to try to say golden backward like stars is rats.
Good. Oh, no.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Perfect. Nailed it.
Nedlock.
Yeah. We're not going to do that. But the idea of saying that, yeah, treat others how you want to be treated, but then treat yourself the same way. Because I think people miss the part of, yeah, you have a goal of how you'd like to be treated, but then don't take the care to treat yourself. You know, there's the term, especially that came around the pandemic of, you know, put on your oxygen mask first when the plane's going down, because you can't help others if you don't have oxygen. It's really the same thing. And especially for folks who are in these giving surface professions, if you are allowing others to share these like deeply, I won't say like hurtful, because like we all kind of hurt in a way, but these like deeply personal, just like tribulations, because they're not always troubles, but definitely the trials we're going through, you need to pour water into your own cup at the same time, or you're not going to be able to keep showing up for the people that you want to show up for. Like you have to take care of yourself the way you tell others they deserve to be treated.
100,000%. As a parent, as a leader, as all those things, it's so easy to just be there to show up for others and not take care of yourself. It was an awesome reminder.
It was really nice. And I liked how Rob said, let the air back in the room, when normally he never stops talking. So he's always got all the air. And I'm sure
you're surrounded.
I know. You, Rob. And of course, I'm the one dominating this outro just because I'm so excited to be able to shine light on my friend Rob. And I feel really lucky about finding connections like Rob in this world where literally we met just on a blacktop with a basketball bouncing. There was no other reason. That we were just in a geographic neighborhood and both were looking to shoot hoops that day. And then we saw each other again without any planning. And, you know, a couple of years later, we're doing a podcast about vicarious trauma and self-care. I don't know how else to say it, but
it felt like the universe had a plan for you. The universe definitely had a plan for you. And you're both very similar. It made me happy to see this was a guy you're playing basketball with, because you could seem like somebody you could have a really deep conversation with, and you could really get to the heart of maybe what's going on, which we all need. It's
why AugMentors podcasts exist, to share relationships like this, to try to help others be part of their community. AugMentors out.
Wow, you've made it this far, and we thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed our episode and discovered new ways to bring more authentic connection into your mentoring relationships. Want to tell them more, Jimmy?
Be an augmenter with us. Visit our website for the best interactive mentoring content at augmentors.us. Share our podcast with someone you care about. Like and subscribe. And yes, really, you following our show and writing a review, it's a big deal. Your actions provide us with the resources to continue our undefeated, unencumbered, prize-winning productions. We welcome questions and suggestions via email hi@augmentors.us or on social with our handle @augmentorshq. We are most active and available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Shout out and earnest thank you to our intrepid producer, Erlin Cato. We appreciate you. AugMentors out.
See ya.